I said, once you stop making people money, your phone stops ringing. We got to a point where we were touring. There was people in their late teens and 20s on the tour, early 20s on the tour, and people in their 60s on the tour. So you're trying to blend all these like things together to be able to be that community that can travel down the road. And sometimes people are not going to agree. Or early on, I knew the bad eggs in punk rock, and I just didn't get involved with them. When I drove out of the parking lot in San Francisco, and my wife, I go, "Yeah, that was fun." She goes, "Is that all you have to say?"
That 25 years was fun. Right. Okay.
That was fun overall. And now what am I going to do now?
All right. Welcome everybody back to a very special episode of Connection is Magic. Today's guest is Kevin Lyman. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you, Samson?
I'm okay. Thank you for taking the time.
No problem. No problem.
All right. So I always do this with every guest because like where we grow up kind of shapes us, and I find that shit fascinating. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California, actually. I grew up in a town called Claremont, California. I was actually adopted as a baby, a young child,
Wow.
and raised in Claremont, California.
Okay, give us a vibe of Claremont. I'm positive that a lot of listeners will not know the vibe of Claremont. I'm
Well,
pretty.
Claremont was probably shaped a lot. It's a college town. There's 7 colleges in that town. You've got uh, Harvey Mudd, Claremont McKenna.
Mm,
You've got Scripps College. You've
mm,
got Pomona College. There's there's the seminary there. So
mhm,
there's a lot of. It was very it was kind of a hippie town. Some people
mm.
would refer to as the early days of Santa Cruz South. There was a lot of
That's
musicians
funny.
living there. There was a lot of it was a mix. And my father actually worked for General Dynamics, which kind of shaped the Pomona Valley in some ways. General Dynamics was a defense contractor actually, and he was an engineer there.
Wow.
And so there was like a mix. So I was kind of raised around a bunch of hippies actually around in the town, and so got some influences from that, and realized some of the activism and things that was going on in that city, and
Yeah.
exposed to that. And then hanging around the Claremont colleges, you were exposed to kids from around the world. We didn't really have that world traveling and everything that we do now, where everyone's the mixed.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty cool town.
Yeah, and you're close enough to LA. Obviously, like you had a big career in music. You're still obviously involved in music, but uh, being that closer to LA, I should say,
Right.
like lets you know that working in the music business professionally is possible. Does that make sense? Like I've had people on here who grew up in Kansas and like it was just this thing I saw on TV. I didn't know it was possible. Does that make
Well,
sense at all?
I drifted into it by accident. I got turned on to some of the music. Mostly it was Claremont was kind of a David Lindley. There was Deadheads. There was that kind of vibe going on there.
Mhm.
But I was kind of exposed to punk rock when I was in high school. There was a couple kids. Funny name. He went by his name was Xerox Clone. That's what he called himself. It's great. It was a great name. I'll never forget him. And at first I think people were in fear of him. Kind of. They hadn't seen anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I eventually, just like I had throughout my school career, I didn't really believe in cliques or things such as that. I kind of drifted around and met people.
Mhm.
I kind of went up towards them and started speaking to him, and he started telling me about this music and things. And then when I graduated college, I met him like when I was a junior, and then I graduated college. I met other people in college. I went to Cal Poly Pomona,
Okay.
and that was another place that shaped me in some ways because there was a group of people that loved music. And it's funny, Paul Tollett, who started Coachella,
Mhm.
actually went to Cal Poly Pomona. Myself, Skip
Get
Hayes.
out of here. So two of the
There's all
biggest
these
like
people that
festivals. Yeah.
we kind of
Festivals.
connected through an engineering and agricultural school, believe it or
Wow.
not. And
Wow.
and
Wow.
uh, and I had a van. That's pretty much how a van could load a bunch of people and drive into Hollywood. And we started drifting in to see shows in Hollywood,
Wow.
and started realizing there was nowhere for those bands to play in the Pomona Valley. Nowadays they have great clubs. They're the Glass House and the
Yeah,
Fox
I've been
Theater.
there.
There's
Mhm.
places to play out there. So I started bringing bands out and playing shows in backyards of big fraternity houses. I wasn't a member of a fraternity. I was a member of a ski club. The ski
Okay.
club was actually the giant social club, and to raise money, I was also on the ski team. We needed to raise some
Mm,
funds, so
mm,
we started bringing bands out from LA to
mhm,
play in these
mhm.
backyards,
Super
and
interesting.
it was, and then all of a sudden it was, you graduate from college, and that's the hardest thing. Being a professor now, I didn't know. I was one of those kids that graduated. What am I going to do now? And what do? You run away to Hawaii, right? Doesn't everyone run away to Hawaii and work in Hawaii for a while? And I
Yeah.
came back, and because I had put on all those shows, I had a pretty good reputation for trying to figure it out, and and put on those shows, that I got the opportunity to go start working at the venues, Long
Mhm.
Beach, LA, and that grew very quickly into Kevin Lyman Production Services.
And so this show is, I don't know if you checked it out at all, maybe you did, but it's about kind of talking about adversity and how adversity shapes you and stuff like that. Like did you what's one of the earliest points of, I guess, adversity on your journey to, to from, Claremont to like now you're, going to explore Hollywood and doing shows. Like, was there kind of a pivotal moment for you, Kevin, that maybe was a difficult thing that you made it through that kind of you grew
Well,
from
I think
or you
because I was a
learned
little,
something from?
I didn't
Yeah.
quite fit into any group, like, and
Yeah.
I tended to be picked on a little bit,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you grew kind of a thick skin,
Mhm. Mhm.
which came in handy later on in life when you get attacked online, 25 years later from
We're
every
gonna
kid
get into that.
online.
I know because there was some death threats or something. I mean,
Oh,
it got pretty intense, right? Like
oh
it got
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
trust me,
Yeah.
I could weather those. It was when it was starting to affect my family more. Those
Yeah.
types of things were a little tough.
Mm.
But then you realize most of those people were 14 years old. It's so easy to hide behind the internet, and
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I grew up, and I also realized that I was challenging, so I was kind of terminally unemployable, if that makes sense.
Go more into
Uh,
that. Go yeah.
I was terminally unemployable in the sense that I had jobs, and I was always saying we could do better, or we could do things. And you found out in life, most people just want to come to their work and do their work and go home. And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, I worked at a school, and
Yeah.
we had a community center, a student center. And I'm like, wait, we have a PA. We should have concerts here. We should have car shows. We build community. I think
Mhm.
early on,
Mhm.
maybe and I've never been broken myself down psychologically, but always believed in community was very important. And you
Yeah.
know and felt everything, everywhere I was, I felt that we could have a
Mm.
better community.
Yeah. That's really great, actually. Do you think that I think that the trend feels like it's moving away from community more towards disconnection and,
Oh,
you
I
know
think
mm.
I think people long for community.
Oh my
Some of these
god. Yeah, yeah.
things that people, it's come out, that report, I think last week, where 40% of the people experiencing loneliness right now.
The Surgeon General actually declared it like the next, crisis in America, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
mhm,
I've talked to a lot of friends who
yeah,
say, as we're getting older too, they're kind of lonely. And I think the pandemic
yeah,
exacerbated that.
completely, yeah,
Um,
and we mistake these phones and things like that. It's like the an Instagram message is not the same as, like, sitting across from, somebody. It's
no,
just not the
and
same. It's like
I find, now it's reflective because I do work, as a full time professor at the University of Southern California. Um, you know, it's these kids are everyone's. There's a lot of challenges out there.
mhm, mhm,
And I think people are longing for that community. They just have forgotten the way how to form those communities.
mm,
So I
mm.
think even to this day, when I dive into something, it's like, how do we bring that together? Because that's where punk rock kind of was.
Yeah, yeah,
And we could have opposing views and have a discussion about them. But now we've isolated ourselves into such bubbles that we only want to be around like-minded people that
yeah,
exactly have our.
tribalism to it's like, yeah, the worst
It's so.
aspects of it. uh we're like at caricature levels of tribalism, right? It's like no
Oh,
opposing viewpoints, and because everybody's living in their own echo chamber, right, Kevin? Like
oh
everybody,
yeah.
it's like your algorithm only feeds you more of what you already believe.
Your algorithm,
Yeah,
or where you get your news from a little
yeah,
spot where, before, and I use it a lot, that I tell people, I say, growing up, we used to have like three ABC, NBC, CBS.
Yeah.
We had a couple local channels in LA. We didn't.
Yeah.
We were lucky. We had two or three of them. A
Mhm.
lot of cities only had one.
Mhm.
In Pomona, we read the Progress Bulletin was the newspaper,
Hmm.
and you got your information from like four sources.
Mhm.
And we kind of everyone kind of got their kind of thought process together. Now we have 100 sources, and you live in that bubble, and everyone's truth is their own,
Yeah.
and a lot of it they don't get opposing views.
Hey guys, just want to take a minute and say thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you're appreciating the content and that you are being uplifted and inspired. Please hit the subscribe button if you've not done so already. We've got so many more cool guests, powerful interviews, just raw truth being shared to uplift and inspire humanity. If you have not done so already, please follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It means the world to us as we continue to grow this channel and this platform to continue to spread positivity in a world that really is hurting right now. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world. God bless. I talk about this a lot, Kevin's like, and people get so attached to their viewpoint. It's like they used to think that the sun rotated around the earth, and like if you had an opinion that was opposite of that, they wanted to kill you. They literally wanted to kill you. Like, so people get so attached because it becomes their identity, and then if you're threatening somebody's viewpoint, it's a threat to their identity, their whole right, and then it
Now, I tell my students, you got to go. You have to go. You have to. Anyone that knows me knows probably which my political beliefs. I work on different voting
yeah,
campaigns. I work on things like that. But I tell people, you know what? You have to go watch. You have to watch if you're into CNN. You have to watch 20 minutes of Fox News a
yeah,
day. You have to
yeah,
watch the
yeah,
BBC. You have to
yeah,
try to find that and look at 8 sources online
yeah.
to kind of get a hybrid right now to try to figure out what maybe the real truth is. And then when the real truth comes together, 94% of us could be put in a room and find common ground.
A
I,
100%. Yeah, yeah,
I
100%.
used I used to say it was 98%. Maybe now it's 94.
A little bit ago, we are talking about like the world being more disconnected than ever. I feel like music is something that is like an instant. It just connects us, right? Like we see the human experience through song, right? And then we feel connected and
For
yeah.
me, it was, this,
I,
we had this giant place when people liked what I was doing, putting skateboarders and music together.
mm-hmm.
I was always very important to have those nonprofits, and I think that came from growing up in Claremont. There was always some sort of benefit, stop the nukes or raise money for a group that was marching across the country to protest something. And but I was like, we can have this platform, and 90% of the people will come to that classroom called the Warp Tour
Mm-hmm.
and they have a great time. They're just have fun, and that's what it was built for. But
Mm-hmm.
10% of those people are going to overachieve, like in a classroom, and they're going to sign up for a nonprofit. They're going to bring the canned food. They're going to engage in some of the organizations,
Yeah,
and that's because they were having fun. So all of a sudden, my mind's expanded because I'm having fun. But oh wow, I'll walk over here and wait. Wow, there's something there to write love on their arms. I can get involved in that. Hope for the day. Wait, they need local chapters. Oh wait, I should probably register to vote while I'm here.
yeah,
Um, and so it was really important to me to with that world to do those kind of things. And really, that's what I'm doing now. I tell everyone you come up with 3 words that describe yourself. And it's hard. I tell all my incoming students describe 3 words that describe yourself. I say
mm,
myself: music, philanthropy, and education. Those were
mm.
my
What
guideposts.
is it about that exercise that you find so powerful? The asking people to do that.
I I think that it kind of builds your foundation, and we hate to talk about branding, but each of us become like our own kind of brand.
Mm,
So every time I try to do something, I go back to that. Where's music? How can someone learn something, and how can we do a little better for the world?
for sure, for sure.
And I do that through now, with Warp kind of on hiatus. I do it through the benefit shows, the golf tournaments I do, things such as that.
Uh,
And I think, oh wait, okay, how's someone going to come have a good time? I'm going to do it
you're
through music.
really. I just want to tell the listeners, like in doing a little research on you, like you're really about that life, as they say. Because like in 2008, I think when the economy crashed, you were allowing parents to come to Warp Tour for free. Isn't that right? with their
Yeah, we
kids.
kept that going, but
Hmm.
I also believe that a lot of the people that were going to our show are going through that. Teenagers and their parents are going to have some conflict. There usually is.
Yeah.
There's some sort of, as they're gaining their own identity and their parents are trying to keep. There's a tug of war
Well,
going on.
as the individuating, as they're
Yeah,
individuating, there's that tug of war for sure. Yeah.
yeah. But I thought if we could bring them together in a parking lot
Yeah.
and they could listen to music together,
Mm.
or be exposed, or the parent can come and say, wow, this is what my kid's into, this is what they're all about. You know what, it's kind of it's where I was 20 years ago or 15 years ago, 20 years ago
Mhm.
now. And then it was awesome to me when parents would walk up, a child, usually you'd see them walking when they were trying to get into the venue, they'd be 10, 15 feet in front of their parents, and then by the end of the day, they were walking together, and maybe the dad's got his new "Every Time I Die" T-shirt on.
Mhm.
And I had to go talk to him, and I go, "Were you a fan before you came?" And he goes, "No, I just found my favorite band thanks to my daughter bringing me to the show, or my son."
Wow.
Um, and I thought, those
Talk about
bonds.
that's by the way, we were just there. You realize this, right? About people not taking the time to look at another person's viewpoint, right? And just kind of making judgment and stuff. So a lot of these parents were just like, no, no, that's not for me. And then you just said they discovered their new favorite band. So cool moment there, Kevin. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's how I've always looked at things, and I also teach people that whenever you have to make a decision, try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and think where they might be coming from.
Hmm.
Don't take offense to it. You may not agree, but if you put yourself in those shoes for 2 seconds, if you 5 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
it, it helps in business. It helps in life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, and try to So it's been a great, I don't know, petri dish for me, I guess, in life. To kind of
Yeah.
see how people react, and that parents thing was great,
Yeah.
but and of course, there's going to be people that come along and take advantage of it. I literally think some that teen would drive by a 7-Eleven and nab a kid and say, "You're coming to the Warp Tour with us, so we get it free
Just to go for
sometime."
free. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
But no, but Kevin, I just want to spend a moment here on like how the Warp Tour initially kind of came together, because that obviously was like a huge success. And I think people that have huge successes sometimes don't like open up the curtain all the way and talk about some of the struggle points and stuff like that. And it makes it seem like it's so out of reach. But will you tell us about maybe the early struggle, if there was some uphill moments for you to get this off the ground, the Warp
well,
Tour?
luckily I had put in those 13, 12 and a half, 13 years in the clubs every night of the week.
Hmm.
320 days a year, I was working shows.
Yeah. So you knew what you were doing, you're saying, when you got
But
to
I was
this
also
point.
building those relationships that allowed me to fail, because ultimately the first Warp Tour was kind of a failure.
Oh, let's talk about it. How so?
You know, no one understood what I was doing. Some of the bands did, of course. We made
Hmm.
Sublime, No Doubt, and
Yeah.
the people that knew me were willing to take a risk on me because I'd done so much for them in the past or helped them. They were willing to take this risk, and then those bands, even though
When you say they, are you referring to the artists themselves, the management, the
the art,
agents, like
the
everybody, or
artist
the artists mainly? Okay, right.
the
Okay.
artist got it. You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
trust me. I had to go. Sometimes you're not supposed to enter industry go directly to the artist, but I had to go to directly to the artist that
You
first time.
would? Okay. Okay.
You had nothing to lose. I had nothing to lose at that point because, one, I knew that I loved it to be around music, but I would have to create
Yeah.
something for myself at this point.
Mhm.
And two, uh, I always believed that, and I realized at first I was the person that loaded people's equipment in their vans or threw people off stage all
Wow.
night, or built barricades, set up the dressing rooms, whatever. But if you really believe in something as passionately as you do when you create something, you need to be willing to talk about it.
Hmm.
I wasn't going to be the front person. I was the guy in the background. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to convince people that this is going to be a good thing.
Mhm.
And we went out, and it was a band of gypsies. There was like-minded spirit. We were all a bunch of free spirits trying to figure it out as we went. As I was challenging every norm, there was no headliners. We wouldn't tell the kids what time the bands were playing.
Hmm.
All these different things that I had learned from working other shows and being around, that I just decided to try myself. And enough people got it. And throughout the years, for 25 years, some people never got it. That's fine.
Hmm.
The Warped Tour wasn't for everyone. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe in a little selfish way, I said it was for all the smart kids. No, because
Wait, hold on. But wait, the first failure though. All right, I just want to make sure there's tangible takeaways for like the listeners. So like, first of all, like you had about 13 years of experience before you took on this endeavor, right? So you didn't just
yeah,
come in as a total newbie. That's
right.
one. But two, like how bad you said you still did flop, right? At your
Oh
first go.
my, oh
So
my,
how bad was that? Like talk us through the feelings, the emotions. Like that's the shit that I like to talk about that's most relatable for people.
every
Yeah.
day. Like we started
Mhm.
out, my gosh, it was like I'll never forget that first day in Salt Lake City. But I also started learning lessons too because we had this punk rock show, and I
Mhm.
brought a climbing wall. No one had ever brought a climbing wall on a punk rock show.
Right.
And I'll never forget a little kid. And I wish I could meet him now. He's probably about 40 or 50 years old.
Yeah.
He had a mohawk, and he ran up to the climbing wall and he goes, "How much?" And I'm like, "Wow, is that the first thing we ask when we come to how much?" I go, "Free." Now, the guy who brought the climbing wall is like, "How the hell are we going to do this for free?" I says, "You know what? I need to create experience that people aren't asking how much. Like give them something extra." So we
Mhm.
had that climbing wall.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there was only 600, 700 people at the first Warp Tour. Second show was even worse. The promoter like didn't even show up. We
So
just kind of
you
ran
lost a ton of money though, Kevin, to be clear, right? On
Everyone's
the
losing
right.
money.
Mhm.
I'm losing money. They're
Yeah.
losing money. I'm
Yeah.
getting screamed at by promoters,
Wow. Mm.
but enough of them saw. And I think that was because I'd done so well for other that I was allowed to fail and get a
Mm.
second chance.
Mm.
At
Mm.
different times throughout my history, that tour wouldn't have lasted 2 or 3 days.
Mm.
But we got through that first year, and I knew that we had to regroup, and I learned a lot. I understood, and it was hard because wait, we got have to go get a sponsor to help us do this. We're
Vans, right?
we're
Vans
punk,
came on board,
yeah,
right?
we're
So
punk rock. Fuck
yeah.
corporate
Yeah,
America. We
fuck
don't
the
want to do
fuck
it.
the
Yeah,
man. No, right, yeah.
and all of a sudden I'm realizing, wow, maybe I have to go get some of this money so I can continue having fun with my friends.
And wait, just a funny moment, like from I heard you share in another interview, you're like, some of these bands on the Warp Tour were like, fuck this corporation, this sponsor, and then they would go eat the food that was like being provided by that
Oh yeah.
corporation. You're like, man, that's hypocritical, man. Like you can't. So
Yeah, it was it was
yeah,
it was definitely, but there was days, but I also saw
yeah.
the inspiration to me was when we would open the doors each day, and whether there was
Go
a
more into that. Like what what
few
was?
hundred
Give us the
kids,
visuals.
I got goosebumps every time I opened the doors
Wow.
when those kids
Mm,
come in. And I always said, if you stop getting goosebumps, it was time maybe to think about doing something else. And that's what happened around 2017. I was not
mm,
as excited about going on the road. I was not. Uh, it was just not. I felt I was going. So much of the burden of Warp Tour was falling on me because the
yeah.
promoters were fine because we had different deal than most people. They didn't pay a guarantee. We were
Hmm.
percentage of a door deal, like a club band at a door deal versus a guarantee. So much was following on me that it was really there was really stressful. And I actually went out to the industry and invited a lot of people to my backyard
Hmm.
barbecue and stuff. And
Hmm.
really, no one was coming up with. First time I ever went to anyone, I said, "Look, I'm kind of at a loss. How are we going to keep this thing going? Is it important to keep going?" And I was really getting kind of bad suggestions from some people, just how to keep it going. And I was just like, you know what?
Hmm.
I'm going to wind this thing down in a nice way. 25 years is perfect.
Hmm.
We had in 2018, I just booked all my fit friends and more legacy bands, and we had our second biggest year, and then wrapped it up with those big shows in Atlantic City and San Francisco, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
And time to move on. When I drove out of the parking lot in San Francisco, and my wife, I go, "Yeah, that was fun." She goes, "Is that all you have to
That
say?"
25 years was fun. Right, right, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was fun overall. And now what am I going to do now? Oh yeah,
There was no grief. You were all smiles. You're pulling away. I got the visual. Right. Okay.
yeah, just
Yeah.
got the
Mhm,
visual. I was
mhm,
like,
mhm,
boom. And then, we're now, and we got together as our partner. Fans was a partner, and we said, you know what? Let's put this away for 5 years. Now
mm.
we're coming
W-
up
w-
on 5 years.
Wait, Kevin, hold on. Wait, we're breezing past this. You didn't tell me about the Vans a little bit more in depth about there was the hesitation to, again, go corporate because you were kind of anti corporate. So partnering with Vans at first was there was some hesitation at first, right? And so I
Not so
just
much
wanted,
for me. For me, I was
okay.
going to see how people responded. But
Okay.
Vans is a cool company.
Right.
We all growing up in California, we all wore Vans. It was like mom
It's
would
like
drag.
Vision Streetwear or Vans, right? The two
Well,
skateboarding companies,
prior
right?
when I was younger, there was no Vision Streetwear, so
Okay.
Vans was
Okay.
the company,
Okay.
and then I grew up in Claremont, so the LA County Fair was right next door. So
Mhm.
mom would drag you to the LA County Fair, and there was
Yeah.
Steve Van Doren when he was about 10 years older than me, so I was maybe 16 or when I was 6, and him and his family were out there, and it was 2 pairs for $10, I think. And
Wow.
they were
Yeah.
it was like a sale they would do at the fair, and we
Mhm.
would go get our shoes to go to school. And
Mhm.
so partnering with Vans was easy for me. You know,
Mhm.
certain people were like, I wear Airwalks, I do this. I remember some of the punk bands, like, that was fine. But they eventually
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
they all went over and picked up their free pair of Vans that Steve was passing out and clean socks
Yeah.
eventually. But you got to be. It was hard for people, and some people never accepted it. And it's
Mm.
okay. There's punks that still say fuck Kevin Lyman. Some people say I ruined punk
Mm.
rock. Um,
Mm.
One time in a bottom of a venue, I got attacked by someone for ruining punk rock. Now
Mm.
later on, we became pretty good friends. He was very drunk at the time when he made that approach, and when he got sober, we came and talked to me, and we traveled a little bit and did a couple events together, and it was cool. And I did it the way I felt it was right. Some people didn't think it was right, but it allowed me to do all these other things too. Like we had the Mayhem Festival, we had Taste of Chaos, we had all these lifestyle branded festivals. Had a record label with Side One Dummy Records. I was manager for a while of Less Than Jake and H2O and Ataris, and and helped build these other brands. So it's been a good run, but maybe that little itch that you said was 5 years after it's 2024 is going to be 5 years. I'm getting a little bit of itch more to maybe build that community up again if I have the
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that's like a core principle to you. We might have to add that one in there because I don't know if you said community is one of your three words. I don't think that was one of your, it was
No, it
music,
wasn't.
philanthropy, right? What was it? It wasn't community.
Philanthropy, education, and music.
Okay, we got to add community. We got to,
Community.
there
We'll
might
get
need to be a fourth.
fourth word.
But here's what I'll say too. I believe in creating like a healthier, just overall ecosystem to the music industry
Oh,
because it can be pretty, unhealthy and toxic at times.
sure.
You talked about if you take a day off, you're looked at like people give you like a sideways look. I don't know if you remember sharing that
Oh
before.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind going into that because that's also part of the
Well,
premise of the
well,
show
and
as well?
I learned early on, and that if I was going to lead, I didn't have the skills that maybe I needed, and that came first with when Brad Knoll, Sublime, was suffering out there from addiction, and I
Mhm.
didn't have the tools myself to probably help him the way I wished I had. So I
This is
went.
the lead singer of Sublime we're talking
Sublime,
about, just
yeah,
for those that are yeah,
who
right.
passed
Mhm.
away
Yeah.
right after that first Warped Tour. So I made
Mm.
a conscientious effort to go learn how we can help artists that are in need,
That's
uh,
beautiful. Yeah.
which eventually led to all the work I did with Music Cares,
Mhm.
and eventually having Mike Farr, an actual traveling counselor, with us on the road.
Mm.
And we would be able to. I got to the point where we could kind of see when someone was really struggling, and have an intervention out on the road. We sent
Mm.
people to the road to rehab while we were on the road.
Wow.
We
Whoa! And you're like, "You actually gotta hold off on this date or 2 so you can take care of yourself?" Like, was it
Yeah.
like
Oh,
that?
yeah. Or we're going to
Right?
send
Mhm.
you off of this tour for a while. Not only
Wow.
artists, but crew people, so you can get yourself right because you may not survive. And that,
Mm.
and then, it's also led to, understanding that in the music industry, everyone's a commodity. Hate to say it, they really are. Whether you are the
Including, like, on the even on the business side, like, some of the biggest A&Rs have, like, come and go like, you know what I'm saying? It's so unstable and volatile that you're really not safe anywhere. I just wanna, like, put that out there. It's
the
true.
crew people,
Yeah.
it was like I know that
Yeah.
you know, I had my moments out on the road. It
Yeah.
was like, so we started having that kind of understanding, and I think it was that experience allowed me to understand that when someone needed some help. or
Can
needed
I
some help.
share a story with you real quick though on the
Sure.
topic here? So I took a meeting at William Morris once with an agent, which is one of the biggest like music agencies, and I was gonna partner. I'm not naming names, but I was gonna partner with a manager who had just been fired by two of his biggest acts, left him, and I was telling this agent at William Morris, I'm gonna partner with this manager, and Kevin, he's like, why would you do that? He just lost his two biggest artists. I'm like, just that comment really rubbed me the wrong way because he helped build these artists into superstars, and I'm like, so you're going to discount his whole like 10-year run that quickly? It was just like alarming to me. Does that make sense? Like it
Oh
was
no,
just like
it's
it was like wow.
our industry
Yeah.
is notorious for that. Okay,
Yeah.
in one way,
Dehumanizing though.
it's
Dehumanizing. It's
it,
like
it's
yeah, go
it's
ahead.
notorious for that. And I always told people, and it's something I had prepared for, and I don't think other people have. I said, once you stop making people money, your phone stops ringing from a lot of people. Okay, I made help people make a lot of money. I really did. I did fine, but I left a lot of money on the table. So people were able to make money, and trust me, people would respond in emails. People would call. I call in. When in our industry also getting old is an issue.
It
Okay,
is. It
and
is.
getting old, youth is the eternal youth of being in the entertainment business. So people
Yeah.
struggle with it, struggle with it, struggle with it, and when you have health issues, you people stop shy away from each other in our industry. They
Mm,
really do.
mm.
I had the double kind of whammy at the end of Warped Tour, which was kind of I knew I stopped making people money, and I stopped. My health went a little south. I had physically because I had worked so hard, my
Mm,
health was a little bad, and I had some surgery. So you really
mm.
realize who your 20 true people. Everyone's a friend in the music. You know how everyone says that my best friend. This as they're all stabbing each other in the back
Yeah,
and they're talking shit.
that's right
I'm like,
there.
you really realize the 20
Yeah.
people who were close when you hear from them when you stop making them money and you have some health issues. And it was okay. It was okay.
Mm.
I was cool with it. I
That
was
didn't
cool.
that didn't bum you out? That didn't bum you out?
No, I
Oh,
knew
man.
I knew for 12 because I sat there and that's what I learned working in those
Oh,
clubs for
man.
320 nights a year early on in my career. I would watch these people patty. I was like a fly on the wall because I was the production guy. And I'd
Mhm.
watch everyone hugging and doing this. And then five
And you're
minutes
like,
later, when
"You
the person
knew,
walked
you knew."
away, people were just talking shit. And it was like, so I
Mhm.
realized you separate your lives in some ways. So it was like I said, I could always do business with anyone. I could figure out how to do business with anyone. But you really knew who were my friends when you came to a barbecue at my house.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's for sure. I think Oprah says like everybody wants to ride in the limousine with you, but you want somebody that when the limo breaks down, they'll get on the bus with you. Like that's
Ex-
really what you want.
Exactly. And it's helpful. It's
Mhm.
okay. So I love
Mhm.
randomly just still do this. I'll just randomly call people.
Mm.
Just say, hey, just
Just to
checking in
check
on
on
you.
them. Yeah, that's
That's
beautiful.
how you do. And they
Yeah.
go, well, what do you need? I go, nothing. Just checking in on you.
That's beautiful, man. That's
And
beautiful.
it kind of throws people for a loop in our industry.
I
So, but the nice
know.
thing
Yeah.
is the young people coming into the industry, and that's where I figure my best time used right now. I'm teaching
Mm.
them that you can do good and do good business. There's nothing wrong with making a nice living in the business, but you can do good.
Can
So
you can
invent
you keep your morals and your integrity like more or less intact and still have a successful career in music? And
Yeah,
you're convinced you can.
and not everyone's going to like you. You realize that. You have to realize that not everyone's going to like you, but I
Mhm.
but if you do good, they're going to respect you.
Mm.
And I think
Hmm.
we all once I realized that because I thought everyone had to be like you, but I really some people don't like Kevin Lyman. That's okay. But I don't
But
know why. I always ask them.
they respect what you've done. Even those that kind of aren't on board with you can
Yeah,
still
and
respect. But
and if someone really, some of those people that didn't like me on the internet, I'd say, hey, come meet me. I'd love to chat about what I did so
yeah.
wrong. Maybe I can learn from that.
Yeah. Now wait, talk about that because you mentioned again death threats and things getting really heavy and your family getting threatened. Is that correct?
Yeah,
And
but
like where did that start? And just maybe just the quick Reader's Digest to that. I
well,
want to know.
the internet. it used to be when there was an issue, people would
Yeah.
come over and talk. It was called "Come Talk Under Bus One." My tent
Right.
was Bus One, and most of us could have a conversation.
Mhm.
But then I was getting older, and I was touring with young people. I
Right.
mean, Warped Tour went around 25 years, so
Mhm.
sometimes we got to a point where we were touring. There was people in their late teens and 20s on the tour, early 20s on the tour, and people in their 60s on the tour.
Wow.
So you're
Mhm.
trying to blend all these like things together to be able to be that community that can travel down the road. And
Yeah.
sometimes people are not going to agree.
Mhm.
Or early on, I knew the bad eggs in punk rock, and I just didn't get involved with them.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm. Didn't
I
care it
depend
di it
on
didn't matter if there was money to be made, like,
yeah, yeah.
you wouldn't do
I just
business with
avoided
them,
them.
right? Yeah, yeah.
But
Mhm.
then later on,
Mhm.
I was kind of dependent on managers, agents, record labels, people telling me about people that I should bring on the tour.
Mhm.
But they didn't fill me in the blanks that maybe, or maybe they didn't even know that this person maybe had a little bit of a shady past, or maybe, something going on.
Mhm.
So I was like, and we couldn't do background checks on all 1,000 people that were on that
Right,
tour.
right.
And then if I found out there was a problem, many times I did with that, I didn't bring him that summer with me. And then I made some decisions that if I look back, I went to experts. I always try to get an expert opinion if I because I had to make a lot of decisions, but I had to make them quick, and
Mm.
usually they had to be made with split second almost when you're running a tour like that. You had to
And
live
big
and die.
decisions with a lot on the line you were having to make very
Yeah,
quickly, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and there was
Mhm.
one time an artist was accused of some improprieties before the tour, and I took him
Yep,
off the tour.
yep, yep.
And he went into counseling. He was in suicide watch, all these different things. And
Man,
I was
man.
talking to the other person if she needed to press charges. We were there, and I probably got too deep into it. We're there for you.
Mm.
But later on that summer, um, I asked the experts, "Is he a danger to anyone, or do you think that?" And they're like, "No, he made some stupid decisions, but he's
Yeah,
not a danger." And she
yeah.
wasn't pressing charges, so I allowed him to come and play one show in an
Mm.
acoustic tent.
Mhm.
And instead of the artist coming and discussing with me, why did you do that? They all went public on social media right away.
Oh, it was like Kevin supports this
Yeah, yes,
person,
yeah. And
right,
and
okay.
instead of coming
Mhm.
and talking to me why I did those things, and I had
Yeah,
gone to some experts in the field and said,
yeah.
look, it would be okay. He's not going to be a danger there.
Mhm,
And if the
mhm.
people felt bad about it, they should have come and talked. But it went in public, so it went out into the public
Mhm,
ecospace. Something
mhm,
goes out,
mhm.
and then you're under trial by the court of the internet, which you
Yeah.
realize is just fucking bananas.
Yeah, it is.
And I made the mistake thinking everyone deserved an answer. you know.
Oh god,
So if
wow.
they walked over and talked to me at my tent, the band that maybe we could have had that discussion, and I would have taken all their opinions. And I also realized I wasn't touring with my peers anymore. I was touring with young people. When I
Mhm.
toured with at the beginning, they were all my peers. We could have
Yeah,
those discussions.
totally. Mm.
So, I wake up, I'm being attacked by 3 buses over. Instead of them walking over and
Mm.
talking to me, they pushed it out online.
Wow.
I don't know if they felt that's the way they communicated because that's the generation they were in,
Yeah,
or they
yeah,
were fearful to come over and talk to me, which they shouldn't have been.
yeah.
That's why I was there every day.
I mean, you seem very approachable. I assume you're this way on tour, right? You wanna be approachable,
This was
right?
my whole
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You know, some
Huh.
people I meet go, God, I was so scared to come and talk to you the first time, but you were turned into a nice, I go, yeah, I was a regular person. And
Yeah.
that's why I was there every
Mm.
day.
Mhm,
No
mhm.
producer traveled with their festivals or tours every day like I did.
Wow.
I felt it was important for me to be there firsthand to help make quick decisions because so many people, because then if I'm there, I can make the decision because I got an agent in New York and a manager in LA calling. And I go,
Mhm.
wait, you're not in this parking lot seeing what just happened. This is the decision I just had to make.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that
you're
makes
getting
sense.
attacked. You're getting attacked. I'm on the bus thinking I got to answer all these people. Uh, it was really stressful. But then you do realize that the majority of death threats come after midnight. And
Yeah.
they come after midnight, maybe after a six pack or whatever. People got a lot of courage after midnight, I felt. And, then we really dug into it. And one time I was being attacked by one person, but that one person had
68 accounts you said,
68
right?
accounts
Yeah, yeah,
attacking
yeah, I
me.
remember.
So it was
Yeah.
uh it was a learning which makes me very, very compassionate to young people to understand what they
Well,
go through with social
online
media.
bullying is online bullying is a phenomenon that, I mean, I went through bullying in school that was like, really intense for me, but I can only imagine when you factor in the social media side of bullying,
It's, I mean, and
it's
that's what you see, that, the stresses I
really
see now. It's
sad.
like, and I have, things where I see, two people break up, and we used to break up and it'd be like, okay, I broke up. That's it. Now they live they start following each other online, and I watch, and it becomes compounded, and I watch
Mhm.
students. So I spend a lot of time referring students to campus support now.
Yeah.
Get some
Mm,
counseling, get some help. You can
mhm.
get through this stuff, which allowed me to work with, my students are very interested in mental health, which led
Mhm.
to the 320 festival with Linda Bennington from
Yes,
Lincoln.
yes. Okay? So Chester from lead singer of Linkin Park, that uh, anybody that doesn't know, did complete suicide, right? And were you close with Chester prior at all, or
We
yeah,
crossed paths in production,
yeah.
and I have a beautiful photo of us together when they did their surprise show at
Mm,
Warped Tour one time.
mhm,
Lincoln
mhm.
Park showed up, uh, but I was, trying to figure out, just like I did with Brad, like, how can we help the future generation of people in our business avoid some of these things?
Earlier, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and if we intervene earlier or have resources,
Mhm,
so I started digging into things, and there's great organizations out there now, like Backline, and there's,
mhm, mhm.
Sound Mind Live, and then I
Yeah,
meet Linda Bennington, and we decided to throw the 320 Festival with my students as a collaboration, a mental health event. Now we had to pivot online, and we did the 21 hours of programming, and it was awesome. And now, it's interesting. On one of my calls later today, is Barbara Zabo, who was one of the early partners of Emo Night.
okay.
She's left that environment, and she just sent me her deck because she wants to work as a coach for artists to help them.
Wow.
She's trained now, and I'm looking forward to my discussion with her. But
Yeah.
I think she saw maybe that lifestyle, that running those big nightly shows and being out late, maybe that her time and use could be better helping people, and that's great. So I
Yeah.
think we are willing to discuss it more. I think having that
Mental
open
health
minded,
is definitely, like, on the table now, thank God, like, finally. There used to
yeah,
be such a
finally,
stigma around it, right? You couldn't talk about it, so
finally, and for
mhm.
me, my mental health, I'm just getting ready to jump in my Sprinter van with my wife, and we'll drive out and travel around for a month now. It's
That's
kind of like being
beautiful.
on tour,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
just get out, and but I'm
Um,
still there for everyone. I talk to my crews, I talk to my people. I had a young person here yesterday who's
mhm.
working through his process of life, and I'm a good sounding board, I guess. I became a good sounding
Being a
board.
mentor is it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you could make somebody else's path just a little bit easier, like, because of what you've learned, then
Oh,
it
yeah.
also kind of it just, it makes it all worth it on some level. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yeah, and I
You know?
encourage
Yeah.
all. It's awesome because I
Mhm.
encourage all those people who now are maybe kind of tailing in their career. They're
Mhm.
doing great. Step in, grab a young person,
Yeah.
mentor them in not only how to do things, but how to avoid things.
Totally. There's a lot of things to avoid in the music game,
Oh, yeah.
Kevin. So
I mean,
many. So
we live in a very wide lane. I always say,
yeah,
what's a wide lane? We get to travel in a very wide lane, the wide
yeah,
lane of acceptability.
yeah,
But when you
yeah.
drift out of those lanes, you are way outside the lanes.
Yeah, that's true. There's a couple people I heard you say you have friendships with, and I consider them really interesting and wise people. Ice T, it being one of them. Have you had a friendship with Ice T now for some time?
Yeah, it's he's got his life, I've got life, but when we cross paths, it's always, we go right back to that moment when we met in 1991 on Lollapalooza,
Wow.
or
Yeah.
that summer when he just said, "I'm coming on the Warp Tour," and he traveled all summer with me in the
Ice T
bus.
did the Warp Tour
Oh
in
yeah,
the
I see on the
yeah.
Warp Tour, and then it's awesome. My father's 94 this week, and
Awesome, man.
his greatest memories are traveling with Ice T around Europe.
What?
And oh
What?
yeah, well,
How'd
Ice
that
T was
happen?
on my tour bus with his crew, and my dad
Okay.
came and traveled with us.
Yeah.
And talk about one of the people that I really, really, really think changed and shaped my life was Ice-T. Some of the things
I was
really
gonna
did.
say I heard him in an interview recently. Like the man is brilliant. Like I heard him say some things. That's why I'm asking you. Like, is there any secondhand wisdom that you could even share with us through like a long iced
Well,
tea
he would
friendship
he would
just on
just say,
life?
he
You
would
know?
tell me I think too much. You gotta just
Wait,
start going with your gut.
oh, Ice T would say you think too much. Go more with your gut.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
he
Right.
also
Right.
says,
That's good advice. Yeah.
he
Mhm.
says, if you want to ever be successful with women, you got to learn two things: learn how to dance and clean your ass. So I don't know, So things like that. It was, he was awesome, and it was just always good. And we would talk late at night and realize that so much of us have so much in common. It's just
Yeah.
sometimes where we're born, and
Mm.
how that
Mhm.
that environment that we grew up in changes so much. But when you really broke it down, but you really knew star power with Ice T though, because back then they didn't have phone cameras, right? And
Yeah.
we would
Yeah.
pull into a truck stop in the middle of nowhere, and he'd walk in, and everyone there would jump over the counters and grab those Instamatic
Yeah. The
cameras and
instamatic
rip them
cameras.
open and start taking photos of him. That was star power. Like you'd be like a Bucky's in the middle of Texas or somewhere, and and then people some nights would just leave their car and jump in and ride with us to the next city. It was kind of just
That's
bananas.
good, Kevin. Okay, so the second person that I want to like Trent Reznor as well is like he's had just such an interesting
Oh,
career to me, Nine Inch Nails, and then super involved on the Beats by Dre front, right? Or Beats.
yeah,
I think it's Beats by Dre. Go ahead.
and
Yeah.
I worked very closely during that
Mm-hmm.
period of time.
Mm-hmm.
With Nine Inch Nails, and I was working
Yeah.
with Stone Temple Pilots, and I was working with
Yep.
Porno for
Yep.
Pyros.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tragically, we lost Scott.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and Trent, man, he was kind of in a weird, dark place almost during that period too. They all were. Trust me, it was
I know, but we're talking about like the dark, like heroin, right? Very
man,
dark
I
side, right?
but
Mhm.
he came out the other end,
I know.
and
I know.
and think about what we could have lost with we lose
Amen.
talent.
Amen.
But Trent, man, but he was so brilliant. I was constantly confused to what the hell he was doing, but he had a mission and a plan, and I tried to help him as much,
You
implement it
said
as
he had
much.
some equipment that was kind of too advanced, right, to use or
Well,
something,
no,
and
that's back then,
or
on
that was
91
okay.
Lollapalooza with the lights. But then I started doing some of his world tour stuff with him, and he was
Okay.
changing his plans, and he was driving me crazy, to be honest.
Like,
And
right.
literally, I think the night that I finally quit, we were in Hawaii, and he used to break keyboards on stage all the time. And I'd been up all night working, not realizing he'd canceled the Australian tour. We're going back to California. I was sleep deprived.
Wow.
Deprived. I was like, I looked at him, and my job was to make sure as he knocked equipment over to get it back up on stage while he was. And I told him if he got close to me, I'd choke him with a mic cord that night. You know,
Yeah, what?
and that was the end of my time with Nine Inch Nails. But we run into each other, and another person I just really brilliant, brilliant, absolute God, mad scientist back then, brilliant.
Everything is so saturated now. It's like there's like kind of a paradox that exists where there's all these avenues to get yourself out there independently and get discovered, but the saturation has like never been more than what it is now, right? And so, how do you? I don't know if any advice for artists that are like on the come up that are trying to navigate right now these two things.
Wow, I like to work. I find see, you know, it's interesting. There's probably more ways to make a living in the music business than ever. Really is.
Right,
Those little streams of buckets are there's 24, 25 ways. We used to make them in two buckets: touring and records.
right,
Money went in.
yeah,
Now you got to look at it as it's a giant bucket, and you're going to be pulling pennies. So find someone super smart when you're young, that's smart
mm-hmm,
in business, that's your age, and grow together. I
mm-hmm,
have so many
mm-hmm,
people at campus now. They're growing together and
mm-hmm,
understanding that it's not about overnight. It's not about going to be a TikTok trend. It's going
mm,
to be understanding a larger playing field, and where does that navigate. But I think I said it many years ago. uh, there's going to be more ways to make a living in the music business, and a living in the music business is, to me, is you have a roof over your head,
Yeah.
You have a barbecue with your friends.
There you go.
You might be going on vacation, and you start
Yeah.
saving for when you retire.
It does
Now,
it doesn't have to be a private jet, just to
yeah,
say. It's to be a
there's less
success.
and less people, just like a microcosm of society.
Yeah.
10% of the people take a bunch of the chunk of the money, but there's going to be more people that can actually navigate making a business. And there's so many ways to do it now. You don't have not you're not looking necessarily for a record deal. You're not looking for this type. You're not looking for the traditional big agency. You're not looking for the big management
Mhm.
company. You're looking. You can carve out little niches and do well. And
Mhm.
you know what? There's artists that are living like in New Hampshire. This guy I hear goes to Maine. He's like raising a family. He's got it,
Mm.
and he's not signing deals. And there's a lot like him.
Billy McFarland, the Fire Festival.
Uh,
It's he's coming out with 2.0, Kevin. It's coming.
uh,
I want to
well,
know what your thoughts are before yeah, that
well,
happens.
well. That's where the other end of this business, where you said the manager they wrote off. All Billy McFarland has to do is show up with a bag with $20 million of cash at one of those big agencies you talked about, and all of a sudden he's the greatest fucking producer in the world again, right? That's it's polar things, and it's mind boggling, but that's the world. And if he
Does it
shows up,
upset you at all? It sounds like it's upsetting to you though. Like talk to, it just
well,
seems it seems
hopefully we've learned as an industry to ask, great, Billy McFarland, who the hell did you hire to produce the show this time?
mm.
Who's actually going to do the nuts and bolts for you? Uh,
So
his
you
production
support it
team,
if there's a plan, people should be given a second chance. Like you
yeah,
would support, right? Okay.
yeah, but I mean, if the public, my students, it's great because I of course ran it by them. How many of you are ready to sign up? And they're like, "Fuck no!" Like, but you
What was
know
that
what?
George Bush thing? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Yeah, it's like, but
We
also
got
just supporting. I just this guy. I mean, I don't. No shit. The guy seems like an asshole to me. I want to support. What my financial advisor friend said: vote with your money. Like he just gave me that gem, and so I try and vote with my money.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. We have to
anyways,
think about that sometimes. We probably have to
yeah.
do that a little bit more with some of the things in life. That's a whole nother episode coming up.
Yeah, that's another episode, but
But
this has been a
no, I
lot of
mean, I'm
fun,
like,
man.
I read that, and we had a lot of fun in one of my classes with the students. Just like,
Oh, you guys actually talked about this in one of your classes.
oh,
Okay,
yeah, we
good.
talk. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I keep my classes very current. They know exactly. They tend to know exactly what's on my mind. Now they can
Mhm.
have opposing views, which I encourage them to. But
Yeah.
they're a great sounding board for me. We have really good, strong conversations about stuff, and
Amazing.
there wasn't a
Yeah.
lot. Trust me, there wasn't a lot of people jumping up and down and ready to Venmo Billy some money for whatever ticket.
That's funny. Okay, wait. I thought of one last one here, Kevin. So another reason why I wanted to create the show is because like I like to like people tend who struggle and then find success can sometimes like want to like block out like the struggle portion of their story. It can happen. And I you shared this in a previous interview relating to like G-Eazy, who's very successful, had a documentary, and I think he played like a small stage, right? You were
Oh yeah,
sharing,
yeah, one of
and
those
it was
first.
blocked out of the documentary, right? The early
Yeah,
days of
yeah, when it
G-Eazy.
was,
But
which is you don't know what's in his mind. I put it in. I put.
yeah, no harm. But I'm just saying it's a thing people can do. They want to just close the door on those chapters,
Oh
but
yeah,
those chapters are the most relatable. So I'm
oh
like, well,
yeah.
why aren't we talking about this
I know.
more?
And then you
You
have
know?
Katy Perry, who thanks the Warp Tour every night during her Vegas show because it taught her to be a live artist. So
Wow,
there's moments of
wow,
time, and it just depends.
wow.
Maybe the experience for him or where he was in his life. It's all good.
Yeah,
He knows he
yeah,
was there. I know he was there.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
bunch of kids will say, "I saw him there." You
Yeah.
know,
What is it about? And people love this goes with people love being like, I saw this when it was this. Isn't that a fun feeling to be like, I identified this early? We all love that, don't
we
we,
all want to
Kevin?
be
Like, yeah,
first.
we all want to be first. There's something about it. I don't. It almost just validates. It's a little bit validation maybe
Yeah.
to us. Like, oh,
Oh, it was great
I
though.
knew.
A lot of people. It's amazing, and I got to go, but it's jump out in a second. But I got to just tell you, it's amazing how many people told me they were at the first Warp Tour. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
wait, you were one of the 8 people. Awesome, thanks. Or
You start out with
how
like
many of them were
8
there in
people? Damn.
1995? I
Wow.
thank them. I thank them. I thank the bands that were there at the beginning. Always have a soft spot for them, and it's just been a great run. It's really fun,
That
and if I can
that's
do a little bit,
amazing.
little more of
Where
my
can
life.
people find you? I wanna make sure, are you active on Instagram and things like that? Do you wanna shout that
No,
out?
not really. Everything's under Kevin Lyman.
Okay.
I'm really complicated. When social media was, I got rid of, finally got rid of my first my email address was kevinwarped at AOL.com, which people laughed at.
That's
And then
funny.
all of a sudden that made you OG actually when you had that.
AOL?
I had to,
Damn.
I had
But
to
it's like,
get
yeah,
rid of.
that's the OG, like, the dial-up, the Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
I
right.
got rid of that. But it's Kevin Lyman on Instagram, Kevin Lyman on Twitter. I've been really low key recently. If things start progressing, I know I'm going to have to go back into that world, and it does expose you to certain
It
things
sounds like
again.
you're gonna be up to some cool stuff, man. It doesn't sound like, even though you're saying you're gonna take a break or whatever, I think you're
Yeah,
probably gonna be doing some more cool shit,
there's
honestly,
some
it sounds
very
like,
cool shit
so
coming up. There's some very
yeah.
cool stuff. So,
Yeah,
well,
so go check out Kevin, guys. Awesome
yeah.
dude. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Thanks for taking the time, Kevin, and we'll see
Keep
you
up the
guys
good
next
work,
episode.
Samson. Keep up your good work. Thank
Thank
you
you, my
so much.
friend.
Take
Okay,
care. Bye
take care.
bye.
Cheers.
Bye bye.